Hello and welcome to the Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem podcast. My name is Silver. I'm going to be the host, and the other host is...
Chaotic.
Today's episode is going to be episode 12, and it is going to be about the Medusa. This time, Chaotic's taking the lead, with it being one of her favorite monsters.
You better be nice to Medusa. She's a monster created. Okay? So I'm not used to this. I'm not used to running the informational side. So everybody will have to bear with me for a second. So Medusa is a pretty recognizable creature in mythology. Everybody knows about the lady with the snake hair. So I went to a couple of different places to find stuff that I thought would be good ideas to talk about. But one of the coolest ones that I went to, or like different, was the Met Museum site. I don't know if you've been on there.
No, I have not.
So they talk about the different arts and like the times and what mythology they fall under and stuff like that. And the Metropolitan Museum of Art actually has like a story I myself have never quite heard. So it's neat to read. And I guess that the most common like symbol she shows is like warding off negativity or like the evil eye or the third eye. And she comes with a lot of different stories and myths, and like even in different cultures she appears. Just with the snake head and the general, turning men to stone, that kind of thing. But the thing that kind of follows her through everything is the snakes with on her head. But the story I found on the museum site actually talks about when Perseus, Zeus's son, is sent to murder her or behead her, has to bring Zeus, Medusa's head. And then there's other iterations where Athena is the one who sent Perseus. There's a lot of different who's and what's and things that change because it is Greek mythology. But the specific story in the museum was more or less that he got sent to get her head, and the act of killing her was so violent that she birthed her two children. And I don't know if you know her two children, like if you knew they were her children, but Pegasus is her child, which I did not know. Like, off the top of my head.
I think I've seen somewhere about Pegasus being a child of Medusa and Poseidon or Neptune.
Yeah. But I guess I just didn't think to put the two together. The giant Chrysaor, and Pegasus sprung from her neck after her head was taken off, and that's how she birthed her children.
Well, at least she was already dead. She didn't have to deal with childbirth pains.
I guess, but I don't know about birthing a child through your neck either way. Kind of moving on towards the end of the story and stuff. At the end of the museum story, they've played her as the monster, more or less. She is the only of her three sisters to be mortal. Her sisters, Theno and Uriel were immortal. She was born just straight up mortal. And because she was considered a Gorgon, it was Perseus's job to kill her. And I just think that's neat, like with this one, that she was kind of just born this way. Like it wasn't like she turned into anything. It was just because she was a Gorgon and she got born into that, and she just happened to be the mortal one that they could kill.
Yeah.
So it was different reading that as opposed to a lot of the interpretations that I'm used to.
It's a little bit different one I haven't really heard of being told that way.
This one also says that Theno and Uriel's angry pursuit after their sister's killer. So like when they found out that Medusa had died and decided to get revenge, their screams and cries were so intense and so awe-inspiring to Athena that she made a flute song out of it.
That must be some...
Like she invented the flute after them because of their screeches.
Well, at least they got something made. The flute is a weird I wouldn't say a flute sounds like screaming, though. I don't listen to a bunch of flute music, though.
The snake-hair Medusa did not become widespread until the 1st century BC. Roman author Ovid describes her as a beautiful maiden that was taken by Poseidon in the temple of Athena. Athena turned her into the snakes and the awful, horrible sight.
That's more of the one that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, that's the one I'm mostly familiar with, which is, I mean, it would make sense that we are, because we're, we're used to reading the 1st century BC Roman stuff. That's what we're accustomed to, especially with all the history we grew up reading.
1st century BC Roman, that was like 2 weeks ago for us.
Yeah, 110%. Let's go. No, that was just, I remember reading that quite a bit in school. Was right around that time that they taught.
I think they described her a little bit differently in that story too, as in what she looked like as well.
Yeah, she was more of a classic actual Gorgon, which was just kind of like it gives like the, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like, we've talked about it before, actually. We've talked about what the Gorgons looked like. I can't even remember what episode that was on.
Probably with the Hydra, as they're snakes.
I do believe you are correct. It was like around that time when they talked about Titans, like Kratos and stuff like that. It was just another creature that was immortal and had like the slithery snake tendencies and appearance. So it wasn't even, in this point in time of Greek mythology, then they weren't even acknowledging human shape. So it wasn't, you weren't looking at beautiful maidens disguised as monsters or anything like that. You were just straight up looking at huge celestial god forms all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, her original form was that big, huge, godlike appearance. And then it slowly became the one we know with the beautiful maiden that got turned into basically what the Gorgon initially had been described as.
From what I heard or remember, I think Medusa had, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I heard people describing her as before, as she had her snake head, still a beautiful face, but a snake body, and also fangs and wings.
Yeah, the wings is actually pretty standard for that version of the story, which is, it's just neat to learn about that too, because we don't, in modern, more up-to-date modern drawing, we don't imagine the wings, much less the snake body anymore. Mm-hmm. But you're correct. Yeah, there was the snake body itself, and then the imagery of the beautiful face, but everything else was snake-like.
Seems to be, as we progress with monsters, people start making them more and more human-like.
Mm-hmm. It's like they almost made them more relatable or more believable. Because, like, obviously, me looking at you, I could be like, hey, you'd be more likely to believe that I would tell you some pretty lady turns into something crazy, as to opposed to just some huge snake lady living out in the woods. Like, they just tried to make it more relatable and more storytelling than I think it was actual, like, god myths. But yeah, that's, I just thought that was neat on the older Medusa stuff. I knew a lot of the more modern retellings of it as opposed to the older, and I really enjoyed reading about how different it was before we even were picturing like a maiden, like an actual like servant to the gods, or Athena's servant, because she was a devoted to Athena. It was interesting to read the difference. But I guess I can just talk about the modern version of Medusa that we all know, because that's just probably the one that'll have the most conversation. For anyone who doesn't know, there is a trigger warning of unconsented action in her story. But so basically, Zeus, well, we'll start from the beginning. Medusa was devoted to Athena. She worked at the temple. She was a priestess. She served Athena. That was her purpose in life. She was ready for it. She was okay with it. And Athena had always loved Poseidon, or wanted Poseidon. And Poseidon didn't give her the time of day, usually. He came down, I think it was either they were transferring a message or he had to ask Athena for something. But he came to her temple and saw Medusa and attempted to make attracting moves to her. And she was like, I am devoted to Athena. I'm a priestess. I cannot be swayed by your seducing. And more or less, he just took what he wanted anyways. And in the rage that Athena felt in jealousy for what Medusa had gotten willingly or unwillingly from Poseidon that Athena had wanted, Athena cursed her to forever be disgusting to men and also turn them to stone so she could never be with one again. So that's where we get our snake hair, snake tail. There's a lot of, usually the renditions of Perseus coming for her. She does have a snake-like tail or body, but it's almost more like mermaid-esque. It's like a siren attractiveness. So instead of like picturing like a snake head or like moving up to the head and getting like ugly, it's like just the tail, and then she's got like a woman's top half, and
Like
then her.
Like where the legs are is snake, and then upper torso of a woman.
Yeah, so that way, because she was supposed to, because Athena made it so that she was still attractive enough that men could be lured, but Medusa could never be with them. She would only be able to turn them to stone because of looking at them. And Medusa, in her rage, is more than happy to turn men to stone anyways, but also raged because her goddess like abandoned her basically because of, Poseidon. So she has plenty of pent up rage. Now that version, Poseidon impregnated Medusa. And the older version, it was just the act, like gods kind of sprouted other gods. It was like cells, mitosis. And with this one, it was that he had impregnated her with the assault. And then when Perseus was sent for her later on down the line, his beheading her is what kicked her into labor. So that was how she ended up having Perseus and her other very large godchild that I cannot remember the name of because I'm a terrible person.
The Cyclops.
I can never say the name. Cyrenathan?
Seems like whenever you split a god or demigod open, another god is born, or demigod.
Yep.
Just like how Zeus birthed Athena when Hephaestus, his son,
Hephaestus.
Yeah, the blacksmith god.
Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when he hit Zeus over the head with a hammer when Zeus had a big headache and split his head open, and then as Athena came out.
Yeah, as all of the mind and the war and the planning, because it came straight out of his head. Yeah, it's crazy. The gods like eventually they reproduced, but usually it was with mortals, and like any other time they were just smacking each other open. So like everybody was actually a Hydra. We just didn't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, she ended up having Chrysaor,
Mm-hmm.
who is the Cyclops, and then Pegasus. In that version, it's also when Perseus was gifted the winged shoes of Hermes and the shield of Athena. And Athena sent him to murder Medusa because she was just tired and didn't think that the punishment was enough anymore. Perseus gave Medusa's head to Athena, and Athena used it for a constant shield in battle. So she had Perseus go and collect Medusa's head, and then the head of the woman that she cursed and damned because of a god doing terrible things to the mortal, and then used her head every single battle to kill the other side. The audacity of Athena it just blows my mind.
Seems like Medusa just got the wrong end of the stick on all these occasions.
As the mortals tended to. I always figured it'd be somebody like Aphrodite that would get upset with jealousy like that. And for it to come from Athena, who's logically brained, it just hurts a little. Like, I know that all the gods sucked, but it hurts a little.
And that's coming from Athena. Poseidon was pretty much just Athena's uncle, too, wasn't he?
Yeah, because Zeus, created Athena, and Poseidon was Zeus's brother from Kratos.
So with Athena coming from Zeus's head, does that mean she is Zeus's daughter, or would that be Zeus himself, just his mind?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm pretty sure everybody's Zeus's daughter. I'm pretty sure like 99.9% of those gods are Zeus's daughter.
They're all related to each other. Just the Greeks didn't know genetics back then, so they just, hey, from a snake lady, we get a horse and a cyclops.
The another neat rendition on this one was that the gods, after she was decapitated.
Don't tell me they played hacky sack with her head.
If they played hacky sack with that, I would probably just leave this conversation and we're done with the podcast. But no, they decided, I guess, that the left vein that came up from her neck was venom, and the right side had the healing properties. So they all like scrambled to collect her blood, all the gods, like the actual gods themselves. So let me just recap this real quick. Okay. My homegirl was just minding her business. She was fine. She was cool, minding her business, being a priestess for Athena. Poseidon walked up and was like, I want to be with you. She was like, no, probably not. And he was like, well, that's too bad for you. Did it anyways, impregnated her. I'm sure not paying any child support, not helping in any way. The gods sucked at it. Paid no child support. Then Athena was like, I'm mad about it. Cursed her all up. Like put snakes on her head, made her turn into stone, threw her in like a cave in Tartarus, and then was like, I'm going to send my father's kid after you. So essentially her brother, but like her cousin in the stories. I don't know. Essentially her brother, send him down, murder her, kill her, behead her in her sleep. Like she was sleeping and he just waltzes in and then uses her head in battle constantly, forces her to birth these two kids through her neck. And then they took her blood, just lapped it on up into vials because why not?
Yeah. I would hate to be the first god to have to test which one was healing and which one was poison, though.
I bet Zeus made Hermes try it.
Yeah.
I bet. That seems like that kind of relationship.
Hermes or maybe like Hercules or Hephaestus.
I don't think Hercules in most stories ends up being a fairly prized son. I don't think he would do it. But also, I feel like it just didn't matter to him as long as it wasn't him.
Yeah.
You know?
Who got there first besides Zeus had to test it?
Yeah. Zeus was like, okay, I'll fight to the death. Whoever's last standing has to drink it. That's some shit he would do. Like, you're all going to die anyways, but whoever's left standing is going to do it. Ooh. Okay, so a super interesting factoid here. We can just I'm just going to give you some really cool facts. Other than that painting, I was just reminded that if you didn't know already, most carved busts and marble and any kind of representation you see of like Greek gods or Greek entities, and usually even most like Roman carvings and stuff, the women and gods and males and whatever, they never are completely facing forward.
Yeah, they're always
yeah, they like either that way, or even the women, they make them like turn their chest, or like they're always like curled around themselves and have like their hands over their bodies and stuff. Medusa is the only entity that every single time she is depicted faces her entire body and face directly forward. Because it was said that she was such a striking female facing forward that when she was cursed, it was that much more frightening. And that's why they make her shoulders squared off, stomach completely forward, eyes completely forward, staring into your soul. She is the only entity carved, painted, and busted like that.
It would definitely help intimidate anybody, like if you had them painted on the shield or anywhere that way.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Looking through because they've got like terracotta like vases and like a head, and they've got some like shin guard things that have like her carved stuff in front of it. They have like a marble head torso of her and Athena beside each other, and even Athena's like posed femininely, like so she's not like facing forward, and even with her head directly forward, she's got it like tilted to the right, so that way it's like the feminine nature. Athena was a very, very powerful god and female, and they've even got her still feminine like, and the Medusa one is just straight up, straight on. I think that's really neat.
I wonder if that was just a rule in Greek art school. Like, you must always paint Medusa forward. If not, your work will be destroyed. And
that's hilarious.
You shall be turned to stone. Medusa was like the art teacher of it. I bet she taught sculpting.
I bet she did.
Just look at people. I don't understand how hard it is.
I think a good transition is at the end of this article. It says, now that you know a lot of the stories, do you think she was a victim or a monster?
She was more victim. It was all Athena and Poseidon's fault.
I agree. I even think in the story where she wasn't necessarily harmed, like where she was just kind of born a Gorgon and like they were just coming after a monster, like coming to face a god or whatever, she was still a victim. Like she was a mortalized goddess or monster, and she was the only one of the sisters that could be killed. And for no reason, Athena was like, bring me its head. Like, I feel like that's very Queen of Hearts of her. Like, excuse me.
I'd say there was a reason, but it probably wasn't a good reason. She just
I
wanted
mean,
a weapon.
yeah. I mean,
Shield.
like, as a goddess of war, she was like, I want her head because it can turn anything to stone or whatever. But, like, it's just, she was just sleeping in a cave, minding her business, chilling with her sisters. It wasn't like the Titans that were running everywhere and running amok that Zeus had to literally physically put away. Or like Kratos, who was trying to eat his children. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot of other people that deserve much worse. And she was just short end of the stick in all the stories.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like she deserved better, which is really neat too, because now in modern day culture, a lot of we kind of talked at the beginning about how she was originally like the painting for protection, and a lot of women and men nowadays are getting the Medusa head tattooed onto them as sexual assault victims and spokespeople and you know, like standing out. It's really neat to see it now in modern day art being put on skin as tattoos to represent still that same strength and representation and mythology.
That's new to me. I didn't know people were getting them tattooed, and I knew it was adopted by different groups, activist groups throughout the world. But
Yeah, it's a big I don't know if you've ever been on or seen the her websites, but there's a lot of them out there that help represent like female victims of assault and stuff like that. And it's a big stand where they feel that they are safe enough to tell their stories and finally hear their voices heard and stuff. And a lot of people are getting the Medusa tattoo and stuff like that as a just like a group. I see you, I understand you, I know what you've been through kind of thing. It's really neat to see everywhere. I guess we can get crazy with it, get jiggy with it. What do you think about modern day society and Medusa?
I think if they left her alone, everybody would be okay. Depends. If she can control her power, I think it'd be fine. But if she had no control over it, where anybody that looks at her, because I've heard one point where it's men and women that get turned to stone. If anybody sees her in the face, might be bad unless we all carry mirrors with us or shiny shields.
Right. Now, having said that, what if there was a modern day Medusa? Like, what if she was just as well versed in the modern day as you and I?
Oh, that's fine. She can go about her business. I'd have no qualms.
I saw a commercial the other day where she wore sunglasses out to the club so she could party with her friends and not have to get turned to anybody to stone. And she watched a guy mix her friend's drink, like mess with it. So she took off the sunglasses and looked at him across the way and turned him to stone right in the middle of the bar. Like, I just thought that was neat, like a modern day Medusa that fights, you know, modern day issues, kind of like I would almost vigilante her.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty neat. Like, if we had to deal with old god Medusa, I don't think that personally we could control her wrath. I think it would still have to be an instance of having to cut her head off, or if she was just stuck in the cave of Tartarus, just knowing that don't go fuck with her. Like, that's a haunted house thing. Go in if you want to die, don't if you don't. But like if it was old god style and she did get out and like came up to the modern side of things, I think there would still have to be an instance where we would end up probably finding a way to kill her, being that she was mortal and there wasn't like any super big trick to killing her. It was just kind of like kill her.
Where in the world do you think that she would live in the modern day? Back over in Greece and Rome, or would she move like to Florida, where she blend in more?
I don't know. First of all, why does she blend into Florida more? Like, what happened in Florida that you know about that represents like a cave of Tartarus? Florida is a cave of Tartarus. Don't answer that question. Don't answer that question.
I mean, it's right temperature.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I would also think that she would probably live. I think she'd live like under the old ruined Parthenons in like Greece or Rome, just because it would probably give that layer of protection beneath the earth. Because like these guys could live like in the layers of the earth. You know, they were like deep in the core of the earth at one point and layers under. So
Kind of
I don't know.
speaking of living under the Parthenon and living under the ruins, that's what Minecraft did.
Really?
Medusa is in modded Minecraft, and to find Medusa, there's these old ruins that look like the old temples, and
Hmm.
you actually pull a bunch of levers and such, and it opens a staircase down underneath, and there's Medusa's lair. Medusa's down there, and she can turn into
What?
stone. Yeah,
That's pretty freaking cool. See, yeah, I think she'd live underneath one of the Parthenons, like the old broken down temples. She would be under one of those. Just for the familiarity. And that's like, I mean, she would, if she was the olden Medusa, she would be more inclined to stay near the Greek stuff because even though she was Medusa, she was a priestess. I still think she'd stay closer to the temples.
I agree. She probably would. She'd still have her human intelligence and such. So yeah, that she'd know that's where her home is, or her gut
Yeah, for
feeling.
sure. I agree. I think a modern day Medusa would be cool. A Medusa that grew with the ages, eventually escaped Tartarus, was able to come up, adjust to like cell phones, modern day technology. Like I think it would be neat to think of like a vigilante esque modern day Medusa.
I think if Medusa learns technology and cell phones, do you think she would post a bunch of pictures and selfies as a content creator?
But do you have to see just the eyes, or do they have to be live?
I think they just have to be live because Perseus will look through his shield and just see a reflection. So a camera photo, I don't think you'd turn to stone.
I don't think you would either. So she'd be okay. She could like take selfies and stuff.
And
She
she
would
could have
enjoy.
like a secret cosplay account.
Right. Oh my God. Everybody'd lose their mind. Medusa's really just one of the better cosplayers out there. She's really just putting the wigs on over the snakes. It's not hair.
We see you, Medusa. Contact us.
Yeah, please reach out. We would like to know your Instagram. I'm sure you post some pretty baller selfies. I'd like to take some tips, please. Overall, on like the mayhem meter est of it, I think that she, I mean, secretly would be kind of high, but like consecutively, like communicatively, probably pretty low. Like she can only, I guess if she went to like a huge get together, like a football game, and like turned and looked at one half, and they were all looking down at her, they could like to stone. But I don't think that she would do that. Like that's just my own personal opinion. I think she'd be more apt to do like the one person at a time kind of stone stuff. So I feel like she wouldn't be like crazy, like all life threatening on Earth. But I think that she would be mayhem enough that she could be known. Like even if it was just like the vigilante or like the obviously there's like a serial killer turning people to stone. Like they would catch on eventually that something was going on. I feel like she'd get known, but it just wouldn't be as crazy.
Unless she just secretly hides out and sells people statues on eBay in her lair and just ships them to people.
Statue of Justin Bieber, come get it today.
Newsline next day: Justin Bieber mysteriously missing. That's how she gets the celebrities with her Instagram account to come.
Yeah. All the celebrities that get away with horror, she's just like hitting them up with her Instagram. She's like, "Hey, what's up?" But yeah, I think she'd be an overall just like an individual game changer as far as that goes. I don't think she could do like mass damage or would. I mean, she could if she really, really wanted to, but I don't think she would.
All she have to do is just go through any street in a big city, because she could go and turn as she's just walking to start turning everybody to stone, then just turn around and just disappear.
Yeah, no kidding.
She could fly away.
But yeah, that was all like the fun facts I found about her. I mean, there's tons of stories out there, so I encourage everybody to go read all the stories. But I just did the oldest and the technical newest because I felt like they were closer to what we all know. Like with the Gorgons, and you and I have talked about the Gorgons before, we knew, that she was under that file. And then with the newer ones, it's a really big movement deal, and a lot of people have heard more about that. So I thought it'd be interesting. But there's tons of stories out there. Tons. And Greek stories change every day, all the time, every second. So it's really neat to read them.
Did you look up to see if she's in any media? Well, she's in a bunch of media, but
She's in tons of media. I recommend everybody go look up the Medusa commercial. It was pretty great. It's like a Medusa beer commercial, or like I think she's drinking like Corona or something. It's like crazy. But then there's Percy Jackson. and the Lightning Thief. They meet Medusa in there, and they use modern day tasks like the back of a mirrored iPod to see her and stuff like that, which is neat. And then she's also in Clash of the Titans. That's actually when Perseus beheads her. And Perseus in that one actually in both of them, it's hang on, no. Just in Percy Jackson, it's alluded in Percy Jackson that Poseidon is Percy's dad instead of Zeus. So in it, she's like, "Oh, I know your daddy," because he did awful things to her. So they actually alluded to it in Percy Jackson, which was neat. But in Clash of the Titans, it's she knows of him because he's a great warrior, and obviously she knows that Zeus would have sent him, that kind of thing. But she doesn't like really talk about Poseidon. He's brought up in a slight. But Perseus is more or less there to do a job. He's got shit to save. He's got to go turn the crack into stone and shit. So he's there for a reason. Clash of the Titans. It's a really good one. It's a more non-kid friendly version. So it's more gore. There's a lot more monsters in that. So if you want ideas, you should go look, because there's some really, really fucking cool monsters in that. They've got the djinn in there, like the djinn species. They've got some huge like scorpion crab things that come up out of the sand that I can't remember the name of. They have the ferryman. He's underneath. He's in there, like in Hades area, that takes him down to Hades. Medusa's in it. The Kraken itself is in it. He's a Titan. All of the gods are in it, pretty much. It's really neat. And Liam Neeson plays Zeus. So it's interesting. You gotta watch. And they have little touches of all the other gods and goddesses in there. And what's crazy is, actually, now that I'm remembering, when he brings Zeus Medusa's head, Athena flees. She runs. She like turns in her chair and like leaves the meeting of the gods when he walks in with it. So interesting. It's really good though. She's in a lot of media. I'd like to see a modern day something made of her, but all of those movies are really good with her too. And I've not met her yet, but I'm assuming she will eventually be in Lore Olympus, which I'm amped for. Because for those of you who do know Lore Olympus, aka if you've not start reading it or you're just right at the beginning, please, avert your ears. Persephone gets assaulted by Apollo. And there's there's a courtroom thing about it. It takes her like a while to even come out about it, to talk about it. And of course, Zeus doesn't really like believe it, because it's, obviously those are his kids. So it's like, I don't know. It's interesting. So I'd imagine eventually we'll see a Medusa, because it'll be like a relation to Persephone in the Lore Olympus series, which will be neat. But tons of media out there with her in it. Join us again next Monday on Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem, found on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Anchor.fm. Silver and Chaotic talk about how monsters and myths came to be and how they would be received in modern-day society. Follow, like, and subscribe to support. Also find the podcast on Twitter and Discord with the links below to keep up to date with the newest merch and activity. Besides, who knows what mayhem we will get into next.